What's going on, guys? This is Ronnie with JRP Performance. Today we got Fangyi's built 2.0 Beast strapped down on our in-house Mustang MD150 all-wheel drive dynamometer. We're going to take you over there now so we can give you a little rundown of the complete setup, and then you guys are going to get to see some pulls. Alright, so over here you guys can see we got about 10,000 CFM of airflow over here to the cars so they don't overheat. This is basically so when the dyno puts the load on the rear tires or the tires in general on an all-wheel drive car, it simulates a real road situation essentially. So when you're driving down the road, obviously you got a lot of air moving through. So this is what the fans are for. And as you guys can see, we got 3 dedicated fans for the radiator and the turbocharger, so it gets cold, fresh air just as it would on the road. And then we got one on the bottom that's facing the intercooler. So the intercooler, obviously charge temps are going to be lower that way. So that's that. Moving on to the engine bay, we got a Busher built long rod 2-liter with a 9-to-1 compression. We got a cheapy forward-facing 6466 turbo kit. It's a precision turbo with a 1.0 AR hot side. So decently sized hot side. It is a twin scroll kit, so it does spool up pretty quickly. Granted, this is a Evo 9, so it does have MyVec, which is the variable valve timing on the intake camshaft. We have GSC S3 camshafts in there, which are 280 degrees duration. Perfect combination in my opinion for a turbocharger this size. The head is built as well. It's a Busher Stage 3 head, so it has half new over intake and exhaust valves. It's fully ported. It does have O-rings on the head, so that definitely helps, you know, with cylinder pressures, and when you're trying to get wild with it, it doesn't, you know, you don't run into any head lift issues or anything like that. We're always careful when we're tuning these cars to avoid situations like that, but that definitely does help. We just upgraded the ARP 625 head studs on this motor. We've got the Apex powered GTR R35 coils, which are replacements for the CDI kits. So you can run massive gaps, honestly, compared to what you could, you know, a few years ago, and have no basically spark blowout issues. So these are great coils. We love them. We run them on the factory dwell settings, and they've been performing flawlessly. We got an ETS 3-inch upper intercooler piping. Top blow-off valve, obviously it's a vent to atmosphere because it's a speed density setup. We're using an Omni 4-bar to log and basically fuel the car because there's no mass airflow sensor. As you guys can see, it's obviously a forward-facing setup. We got a Koyo half rod over here that does a fantastic job of cooling the car. Granted, it is half of the size of the original radiator. It still doesn't go above the normal temperatures. I do have a 12-inch SPAL 1200 CFM fan wired in. It's still a polar fan, so it works just like the factory. We have a bulletproof racing double pumper installed. We got the fuse over here hooked up. If you guys want to take a trip over here real quick, you guys can see the pumps inside. So a quick glance and you can see the aluminum billet housing for the double pumper. So this does feature 2 Walbro 525s in there, and as you can see we have our own upgraded lines. So it's a -8 feet and -6 return. They're both nylon braided lines, so they're very, very tough. There is a control box that mounts underneath the driver's seat, and the boost switch, essentially it's a transducer. It's not like the old hop switch, much more reliable. We get a reference signal from the engine bay and it goes underneath the driver's seat, so it's a very clean install. You have no extra wires in the engine bay. You don't have a hop switch dangling around over there, so it's a very, very clean setup and we're very happy with it. Again, speaking about fuel, we do have ID2000 injectors on this vehicle currently. So they're 2000 cc injectors from Injector Dynamics. Very responsive injectors. I can get them to idle lock stock, and it's still the stock ECU. So it's very impressive that we can do that. On top of that, we have a fuel pressure regulator. We do have the fuel pressure cranked up a little bit currently, just a little bit above the factory spec, essentially. The next thing that I wanted to talk about that's very critical with these engines that, you know, are running a lot of boost and essentially a lot of blow-by, because, you know, any engine will have blow-by, but the more boost you throw at it, obviously the engine's gonna have more blow by. So we do have a custom STM catch can, which is their original transmission mount, but what we do is we basically get 2-10 feet from the valve cover, and then we get 1-6 that goes to the balance shaft port to scavenge all the crankcase pressure that we can. And obviously it's a vented setup, so it's pretty awesome. Stock drivetrain, stock transmission. We do have a quartermaster 8-leg hydraulic twin disc clutch in there. It's kind of aggressive for the street. We do always use a tilt and clutch stop to basically make it engage and disengage a lot smoother than, you know, if you don't use it. And on top of that, it's a hydraulic clutch, so if there's any inconsistencies between your clearances from the hydraulic throwout bearing to the basically flange of the crankshaft itself, you can run into a situation that you can basically over pressurize the thrust bearing that's in the basically center main on the crankshaft, and you know, you can wear out your thrust bearing quite fast. So that's why we use those. We got upgraded silicone radiator hoses, and yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the setup goes. It's just a long rod 2.0 with a 64.66 and aggressive cams, and you know, everything's proper. It's a very good combination in my opinion. Nothing is mismatched. You know, you see that a lot of times. You'll get a car that has, you know, GSC S1s and they have like a 66 or I'm sorry, 68 millimeter on the car, you know, stuff that doesn't really make sense. And we did go ahead and remove all the extra stuff that's on the intake manifold to basically, you know, avoid any unnecessary vacuum leaks and stuff like that. So that kind of cleans up the engine bay. But yeah, right now, currently, yesterday we were working on the car. I was on the rollers for quite a bit of time. Unfortunately, we ran out of wastegate yesterday at about 41 pounds, and it would taper down to about 37. So what we did this morning is we rerouted the boost controller in a way that we have pressure going to the top and the bottom part of the wastegate. So the 14-pound spring now can act as like a 25 or 30-pound spring because there's pressure on top fighting it. So the goal today is to get it somewhere around the 43, 45 pound region, roughly. With safe ignition timing, obviously makes some very good power. The power comes on very hard on this car. It's unbelievable how responsive these Evo 9s are and how quickly the front-facing turbo is full. Granted, it is only a 2-liter engine, but once this thing picks up, it just wants to go. So we're gonna do a low boost and a high boost tune. I'm pretty sure that with this wastegate setup, we're gonna have a wastegate map, so untouched 0% wastegate is gonna be his low boost tune because it's gonna be plenty with this sort of wastegate routing. And then the high boost, obviously we're gonna have to play with the boost control tables a little bit. But yeah, that's what you guys are gonna get to see. So